Hi everyone, so my name is Jack and I'm extremely excited for you guys to watch the following video series. I have named it Stripes after one of the quotes that you will hear in one of the videos. I am extremely happy to have been given the opportunity to do this project and model it off of Michael Ouna's photo series that we watched in class called Limitless. I think his piece definitely resonates a lot with the LGBTQ community and myself, and I hope that my piece does a little bit of that with you guys as well. So thanks for watching. We are here today interviewing four different participants in a LGBTQ community contrast piece, contrasting the information with the project Limitless by Michael Ouna. First, what is your name?
Skylar Hall.
How old are you?
I'm 20.
How long has it been since that you've been out of the closet?
I came out my freshman year of high school.
Freshman year of high school. And who did you come out to first?
I came out to one of my good friends, Stephanie, first, freshman year, and then it wasn't until probably May of the following year where I came out to my family.
Okay. So what was your thought process leading up to your coming out, and what did you believe inevitably led you to take that step into doing so?
I felt that it was a part of me that I was hiding because so many people see being gay as being wrong and not being okay. So it was just a part of me that I was hiding, and I obviously wasn't going to change because that's just who I am. So I felt like I needed to say it, and especially since it was to my family too, because they didn't know.
So you said that you came out to your friend Stephanie. What was her initial reaction?
She was like, okay, cool. What was the homework for tomorrow?
And so Stephanie's our age.
Yeah, Stephanie's our age, so it wasn't a big deal at all, because it shouldn't be a big deal. It's just who I am.
Did you have any experience with anyone who kind of pushed back on the idea of you being gay?
Yes, my dad. So he was the first family member that I came out to, and it was the roughest family member that I came out to, because he had basically said being gay was a sin, that I was going to hell, and that whole Bible thing, and that, man shouldn't be with man or whatever. So I stopped talking to him my sophomore year.
So the terms that you use, sin, Bible, man shouldn't be with man, did you grow up in a more religious household, would you say?
I grew up mostly with my mom, and she never really was like that, but my dad has always been very much like that. My grandmother was like that too. My grandmother took it a lot better than my dad did, but definitely in a Christian perspective, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So after being out since freshman year, how do you feel you have been treated by society? And give some specific examples of good/hurtful moments that led to your kind of outlook on being in the gay community and the LGBTQ community.
I would say it's very much easier to be gay in today's society, because so many people are just open and accepting of everybody, that it hasn't really been a problem. But I feel like being a person of color in the queer community has been more of a struggle than just being gay in society as a whole. Because it's you can't be gay and a person of color, and you can't, in either of those communities. It's frowned upon to be gay in the black community, and it's frowned upon to be black or a person of color in the gay community. So it's been more hard to be a person of color in the gay community than in general, I would say.
Wow. So in your one soundbite, what would you say to that 14, 15-year-old black gay boy?
Well, I think just any person in the LGBTQ community, that they're not going to change who they are. If that's who they are, that's who they are. A tiger can't change its stripes. So no matter what you're going through, no matter who your family is, no matter what they're accepting or if they're not, there's always going to be people who are there to support you and who are allies, and you aren't going to change who you are. You just have to live your truth. And honestly, you'll feel so much more free when you do.
Thank you. So what's your name?
Jesse,
How old are you?
24.
How long has it been since you've been out of the closet?
9 years.
9 years. And who did you come out to first?
My mom.
Your mom?
Yeah, my mom basically, like, saw my phone.
Okay.
And found out.
So it was more of an outing versus a coming out.
Yeah, I mean, the year before when I was 14, my mom had seen my phone, and she saw that I was talking to guys, and not that I was doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
But then the next year she saw it again. Okay. And that's when she asked me.
Okay, so she prompted the question.
Yeah.
Okay. So that kind of changes my first question, but when you were kind of in that year of talking to guys and then you finding out that your mom had seen your phone, what was your thought process in that situation? And did something in there inevitably lead you to finally admitting to yourself or coming out to your mom?
I had probably thought since I was like 10 that I was not interested in being with girls. But that year in between, that was a weird year because I didn't know who to talk to about that kind of stuff. So I luckily had a few good friends that I could talk to about it, but it was still something that I really couldn't even talk to myself about.
Yeah.
So it was hard to even talk to anyone. So it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
It was a lot of like being alone.
So you came out to your mom. So when she asked you, what was her initial reaction?
So when it was just me and my mom, it was pretty, she basically just said that she loved me and that this didn't change anything. And I, basically just said to her, exactly, it doesn't change anything. So I don't want you to do anything different because nothing's different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that took I think maybe a couple years for her to really just sort of, at least to me, it felt like treat me normally.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning it was just awkward.
What do you think were some of the specific moments you remember that were kind of different than the previous times with your mom?
Because my mom knew and no one else really knew, it was weird because I'd be like with my mom and my dad would say stuff about pretty girls or stuff like that, and I would just sit there, be like, yeah. Sure. It was strange, and my mom would just sit there like, not really saying anything, and because I didn't want her to say anything.
Absolutely. Looking back, would you have rather come out in one cohesive piece, or do you appreciate the time that you had to kind of adjust with one parent and kind of have a support system going into telling the second?
I think it was good in talking to my dad because it wasn't... I think it's a lot harder for guys to talk to their dad about being gay than it is for guys to talk to their mom about being gay. I think gay men generally tend to talk to their moms a lot and be very close with their mothers. Not always, but a lot of the time. And a lot of people I know are. And that was good because when I did eventually come out to my dad, she was helpful.
Yeah.
As opposed to just sort of sitting there being surprised at the same time with him.
Absolutely.
But I don't necessarily think either of them were very surprised.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a little kid, when I was 3 years old, my uncle told my parents he thought I was gay. So,
wow. What do you think led him to that opinion?
Oh no, it was probably all the Barbies I had.
Yeah.
It was probably all the Barbies I had. I had a lot of Barbies.
Do you think 10 years from now, you have children of your own, would you automatically associate your son playing with more female-dominated toys or your daughter playing with more male-dominated toys as their entrance into the LGBTQ community?
I don't think so.
No.
I only think that though because I feel like I have a little different... I feel like when you're gay, your understanding of like what makes someone gay or the things that boys do that are feminine or girls do that are masculine, I think that is less... I don't focus on that as much.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people do, really. Especially younger people of our generation. I don't know if they focus on that as much.
Yeah. The last interview I had, we talked about that as well, the generational differences in our generation coming out to our friends versus our generation coming out to upper generations of our aunts, uncles, families, stuff like that. Do you think after being out for 9 years, how do you feel the societal changes versus generational? So 9 years ago was even before, actually no, it'd be right around 2008 where Obama was elected. And that was kind of a segue for a different time into our country. How do you feel that 9 years has encapsulated the LGBTQ community and experience in your life?
I'd like to think that maybe it's changed. I also don't necessarily think it's changed that much. I mean, I think it's easier to be gay with people our age now than it probably might have been before.
Mm-hmm.
I've met very few people who are young who have ever had a problem with the fact that I'm gay. Yeah. I've met a lot of older people who do.
Yeah.
But from what I know of talking to, like, even people, like, you know, gay guys who are much older than me, friends, I don't know if it's changed that much in a way. I think it's always been difficult. And I think that part of being gay is understanding that we come from a group of people who have had a difficult history and that we need to, like, respect that and know that going forward. And that's how we can make it better for other people.
Absolutely. So what would you say in, like, one specific piece to that? So 9 years ago, how old were you? 15? So
Yeah.
what would you say to that 15-year-old boy who's kind of sitting there struggling to come out?
That it's going to be fine. It just takes time. Because, you know, when you're that age, there's so much going on. You're changing so much. And you just kind of got to let it happen. You have to sit, sometimes being uncomfortable for sometimes years. But it will, you know, it'll pass. Things will change. You'll grow up. Other people will too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. So welcome. What's your name?
Brenna.
How old are you, Brenna?
20.
20. How long has it been since you have come out?
I'd say like 2.5, 3 years.
2.5 years?
Yeah.
So relatively new, kind of like my situation?
In the recent past, yeah.
Okay. So who did you come out to first?
I don't remember like ever being like, okay, like sitting my friends down and doing that, but I think the first person I told that like I was having feelings for the same sex was my best friend at the time in high school.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you kind of came out in terms of, wow, I'm having feelings for you. I want to explain this to you.
Yeah, like as I was kind of having that like revelation, I guess, I like texted her as I was having it. I remember I got out of the shower after hanging out with the girl who ended up being my girlfriend at the time, and like I got out of the shower and I was just like hanging out with her all day, and then I thought about it and I just started crying, and then I texted my friend and I was like, so I think I'm in love with Steph. And she was like, that's okay, you can love whoever you want. And from there on I was just kind of like, okay. And I feel like that was a really good like first response to get from the first, and like I feel like it just kind of like solidified the fact that it was a good idea to go to that person first because of her response. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that your thought process on coming out was you actually understanding that this is who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
And you took that initial leap right away.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
So what do you believe inevitably led to that feeling? What led up to those emotions that you were having?
Yeah, no, it was definitely like the feelings I was having for this girl, like I had felt them before. And I think I was just kind of in like a better mindset, and I was like surrounded by better people, and I just had like a better attitude about it. Not that I ever was like afraid of being like gay, not that I think people are, but you know, I never had the feeling of like, oh, I can't tell people this or I can't be gay. It was just more so figuring it out for myself to be like, am I actually like this, or am I just, you know, I was figuring out my emotions.
Yeah.
But
it's natural for the human body to go through that.
Exactly. And I was just kind of like, well, I'm having these feelings for this girl, and like, because I would always be like, oh, well, like, no, she's just my best friend, and that's like why I'm feeling differently, because like, you know, my other friends are my friends, but this girl is like my best friend. But then I was like, wait, I think it's one step further than best friend. And I was just kind of like, okay. And I was just kind of coming to terms with that, because at the time I wasn't sure if she was reciprocating those feelings, or if she was just like, oh, this girl is my friend. So,
so you said you came out to friends first. Did you wait a long period of time, or are you still not out to certain members of your family?
So my whole family knows. When I told my friends, it was never really like I said before, it was never really like, okay guys, like I want to have you all come over and sit down and I want to tell you something. Yeah. I started dating my girlfriend at the beginning of my junior year of high school. And just like, instead of referring to her as like Steph, I would just be like, oh yeah, like I'm going out with my girlfriend. And like my friends were just kind of like, they never really asked. They were just kind of like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
But when I remember the first person in my family I came out to was my sister, because we're like parallel in each other. So like when I was a junior in high school, she was a junior in college. Oh, wow. And she was going through a lot when she was a junior in college, because when she was a senior in high school and when I was in 8th grade, my dad left. So it kind of like hit her, what's it called? It like postponed hitting her, so it hit her when she was about a junior in college, and she has really bad anxiety, and she was just texting me one day about it, and she was just really opening up to me. So I was like, you know what, Kira, I was like, you know, I don't feel like I have to share this with you because like you're making me, but I want to. And I was like, you know, you've shared a lot of personal information with me over this period of your life that you're going through, so I just want to let you know that like my friend Steph, who's always over here, like she's my girlfriend. And my sister, when I was growing up, she'd always be like, Brenna, I think it would be so cool, like, just to like, and she was like, I hope this doesn't sound bad, but like, just if like one of my sisters was gay or something. So I remember I messaged her and I was like, you know, I always said, I know you always wanted the gay sisters.
Yeah.
But we had, and then I remember when I told my mom, she texted me, and I was going to hang out with my girlfriend, who was a year above me, so she was in college that year, so I didn't get to see her that much because I was a senior. And so I came out to my mom, like, I would say probably like a year after like we started dating. And like I said, never because I thought like my mom wouldn't agree with it, but I remember she was like, Brenna, your bed's not made, your room is really messy, like you can't go to Spooky World tonight. And I was like, Mom, I was like, I will clean my room, but like I need to go to Spooky World because like Steph isn't my best friend, like she's my girlfriend. And my mom's only response, and this is what I love, because it's like, it just, once again, it just solidified the fact that I shouldn't have been afraid to tell her. She was like, Brenna, that's fine, but gay people still need to clean their room. So I was like, that was a great response. And then from there on, it was just kind of, you know, like I didn't feel the need to sit my stepdad down and like have a face-to-face conversation with him and be like, okay, I'm gay, and then sit like my aunt down and be like, I'm gay. And I'm not saying that like that's a bad thing to do, but just personally I didn't feel that way.
It was a more natural progression.
Yeah, so like my family just kind of like knew after that. Like after it was just kind of like out in the open, like my family just kind of knew. And like honestly everybody's been great about it, so
that's awesome.
I love it,
That's
I'm
awesome.
lucky, yeah.
So it's interesting you say you're lucky, because you still had that initial conflict with yourself even. But just because of the kindness and the kind of equal personalities that your family members had and your friends had towards you being a member of the gay community, you say you're lucky.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Like, it's awesome in a way that is different, because I wonder if straight people would say they're lucky for being accepted as a straight person.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely, like, my junior and senior year of high school, I feel like I made better friendships almost, like, after I was out. And, like, a lot of my friends that I did make, like, happened to be either some part of the LGBT community, whether it be, like, an actual member or an ally or, you know, trying to figure it out or whatever. But I just feel like those friendships, they just felt more genuine than, like, the ones I was trying to make, because I feel like I was also just, like, in a better headspace figuring myself out. And I'm still figuring myself out now. Like, I was telling you earlier, you know, I was like, oh, I think I have a crush on a boy. And, you know, for a while, even, like, when I came out as just, like, gay or lesbian or whatever you want to call it, in the back of my mind, I was always like, well, you know, I've always said, like, pan, because I did do my research. You know, I sat down and went on, like, Google and Googled up all the things. Exactly. Yeah, and, you know, pansexuality, it's, like, basically, like, you're looking at a personality over, you know, if they're a boy or a girl, and that's how I've always seen it, but I've always just kind of gravitated, and I've only ever seriously dated girls, so, you know, I'm like I just said, I'm kind of trying to refigure that out right now. But I think that's the whole big thing about sexuality, is that it's fluid. Like, just because you give yourself a label doesn't mean that, like, if it's changing, the world's gonna end. So,
exactly. Yeah. So, interesting to bring the world into play. How do you feel you have been treated by or maybe not in your case, but the LGBTQ community has been treated by society in the past few years, say 2.5 since you've been out, and just kind of see if you could give some examples to that.
Yeah. Well, I like, especially when I think it was when I was a senior that Donald Trump got elected. I forget when it was, if I was a senior or a junior. I know what year it was, but I forget if I was a senior or a junior off the top of my head. But I remember, like, a few of my friends texted me, or, like, I woke up to text in the morning because I was staying up to watch the election, but I fell asleep. But I woke up to text, and they were like, Brenna, like, I hope you know that, like, just because, like, he's our president, like, that doesn't mean that, like, you know, who you are and, like, your community that you identify with, like, in my eyes doesn't change. And just the fact that people would even, like, reach out and say that to me is great.
That's amazing.
But on the other hand, I also I grew up going to Catholic school, and, you know, none of my, like, teachers or advisors or anything, like, anybody, like, in a stance of authority or a position of authority ever made me feel bad about it. And even the high school I went to, like, I never felt like, oh my gosh, I can't be gay. It was actually pretty good about, like, the LGBT community and being a Catholic school. But there were some kids, like, you know, some of the boys and even some of, like, the, you know, the popular girls, like, they never would talk about me, but I would definitely walk by them and feel like, oh, like, you know, like, I feel like a man, or, you know, like, oh, I'm dressed like a boy today, or even when I wasn't, but I was just like, and sometimes I do still have those thoughts where I'm like, well, like, I don't wear makeup, and, like, that's, like, my prerogative and everything, and I don't think I'm ugly, but, you know, other times I'm like, but, like, these girls wear makeup, so, like, it's always that. But, and then I do remember a few times, my friend Nick, he went to high school with me. We chatted, and, you know, he definitely was talking, and I agree with him. He was like, I feel like sometimes it is harder to be a gay man than it is to be a gay woman. And I was like, I think they're both hard. And he was like, no, I agree with that too. And he was like, but, you know, he was talking to me, and he was like, you always talk about how, like, you know, you were just, like, so open about it and, like, how fluid it was. And I was like, yeah, but that's just also, like, my personal experience.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know, I just don't feel like a guy's guy. And, like when he came out to me, he was like, you know, like, clearly, like, I'm gay, like, I know it might not be that big of a shock, and, you know, I kind of giggled, because I was like, yeah, but I was like, you know, like, that doesn't, you know, you don't have to be a guy's guy if you're not a guy's guy, just be you.
I think it's very individualistic.
Exactly,
in that case. But I also do believe that I'm a firm believer in what happens at the top trickles down.
Exactly.
And I think, and I'm excited to see the new kind of government that we have instituted with women and various races, sexes.
Yeah. Just the diversity.
But I think, exactly, the diversity in our government. But I think in previous years, even 2.5 years ago, it was predominantly male at the top. And those were the men saying that it wasn't okay.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what your friend Nick was feeling more so. But I definitely agree with you when I say I think it's very individualistic.
Yeah. Definitely.
And because many family members, I mean, we've seen over a couple of different stories, just the various points of, like, how people perceive it.
Yeah, like, some people genuinely get, like, I've heard some of my friends, like, their coming out stories, and they're like, people, like, I got kicked out of my house, or, like, this person never spoke to me again, or, like, it took a few years for this person to come around. And, like, my sister even, we were chatting the other day, and she was like, have you ever, like, has anybody ever, like, derogatorily just, like, you know, on the street just been like, oh, like, can I swear?
Yeah.
Just like, oh, like, you dyke, or, like, you know, you fag, or whatever. I mean, I feel like that one kind of is geared more towards males when you say fag. But I was like, actually, no, I've never been, like, you know, ostracized or...
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, once again, like, I am lucky about that. But then, later that night, my friend came over, and she was like, I'm really sorry that I brought this person over to your house. I forget his name, because I don't know him. It was, like, her boyfriend's friend. And I was like, oh, why? He was fine when he was here. And she was like, yeah, but he got into the car, and apparently, like, he didn't know that you were gay. And he was like, if you ever bring me to, like, a fucking dyke's house again, like, blah, blah, blah. So, like, I've never, like, had somebody to my face call me something like that derogatorily. But, like, that was the first instance that, like, it really kind of hit me. And I was like, why is, like, who I like, why is that affecting him so much? Like, why does that have anything to do? I don't even remember this kid's name, so why does my sexuality affect him so much, and why does it make him so angry?
And especially because it wasn't like you were trying to hit on him.
Exactly.
Yeah, you weren't affecting his life.
Exactly. And it's not like I was rubbing in his face. It's not like he walked in and I was like, oh, hello, my name is Brenna. I'm a lesbian. Like, you have to be gay to come in this house. I was just kind of like, hi, I'm Brenna. And I'm sure it came up every now and then because at the time...
That's who you are.
And at the time I was seeing a girl, and I'm sure my friend was asking me about it. But that was definitely, like, the first instance that I can remember, at least, and that like kind of impacted me in the sense where I was like, oh, well, like, if what I'm like is what I'm doing not okay? And you know, I thought that for a split second, because I was like, okay, screw that kid.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just the fact that anybody would even like have that thought process, or like say something about somebody who, like, this kid probably knew he was never going to see me again. Like, why did you even have to say that out of your mouth? Like, it's and even if it wasn't even about the LGBT community or whatever, it's just kind of goes back to like human decency of just, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it.
Don't say anything at all.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Speaking of saying things,
yeah.
What would you say to that 15-year-old girl sitting back in your high school?
I'd probably tell her, like, it's okay, like, if you don't like boys, or that the fact that, like, because I had dated, not like a lot of boys, but I had dated like a few boys, and, you know, like, my longest relationship was like 4 months.
Yeah.
And when you're in high school, you're like, oh my gosh, like, I want to be in a relationship, like, I want it to last. And I was like, why are none of my relationships lasting? Like, I date a boy for like a month, and then I get sick of him, and I'm like, you're annoying. And I'm like, maybe I'm just a bitch. But then, you know, especially even when like I started seeing Steph, I was 17 at the time, I think, and that's like, I was 16 when like we started like seeing each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking back to like when I was a kid and being like, you know, this is like the same type of feeling I had about like this person who was a girl and this person who was a girl, and I just thought like I was, you know, like I was a kid and they were older than me, and I just like, you know, I probably did look up to them, but I also had a crush on them.
Yeah.
So I think I would go back to 15-year-old Brenna and just be like, hey, that like feeling in your stomach, it's not just you like thinking they're super cool, like you're into girls, or like you're into something that's not just boys, at least. So yeah.
So just trust the thoughts.
Yeah, just trust your, and I would definitely like, you know, now knowing how people reacted to me, like coming out or telling them, or just kind of it being a revelation, I'd be like, listen, it's not that scary. And I would tell myself what I told you too, you know, like sexuality is fluid. So if you think you're gay now, that's fine. But you know, if Brenna, if you only want to date boys later, who cares? It's your life. Do what you want to do. Yeah, as long as you're not harming anyone.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. No problem.